I'm delighted to welcome today Carly Poyser, who is a confidence and empowerment coach for women in business. Welcome, Carly.
Hi, thank you for having me, Elaine.
Most welcome. So, what's special about women in business that you've aimed your confidence and empowerment coaching towards?
Yeah, it's really about so many women have fantastic ideas, but we seem to stop ourselves getting that across the line and we hold ourselves back, and it is lack of confidence or lack of self-belief. So it's about erasing some of that and rebuilding how we think about ourselves. And I've got frustrated seeing so many women with great ideas just not getting them across the line, and women that have got sort of a side hustle, as it were, that could be something amazing, but we seem to have this barrier up and we end up stopping ourselves.
Why do you think that is?
Self-belief, self-doubt, society, what we've been told we can and can't do, because a lot of the time men don't have this issue. They'll go, bang, this is the idea, I'm going to go and do it, and that's it. They don't have the same level as us of worry and stress. We seem to sort of physically and emotionally really feel it, and they don't seem to have that same barrier.
Is there any science behind that, or is it just something that you've observed?
Something that I've observed mostly, but I mean, I think you talk to any sort of psychologist, I think it's kind of well known how men work so different to women on this level. And it's just aiming to get them to that same place where they feel confident in their own decisions, because we all have the answers inside us, really. We just need someone sometimes to sort of ask the right questions, basically,
Yes.
and bring that out.
Yeah, absolutely. I know all about being a woman is in a man's world. I was chief executive of a law firm and I ran a big consulting division for Ernst and
Wow.
Young. So,
Yeah.
and I very often was the only woman in the room. So yeah, absolutely. It's a different mindset. It's a different approach, and the expectations of society as well. Like you say, we get conditioned, don't we,
Yeah.
into all this. You know, you can't do this, you can't do that. Well, why not? Well,
Yeah.
because well, watch me. You know. So,
Exactly. And that is what it's been like growing up for me. And since I sort of left school and got my first job in the city, even my dad at the time was like, oh, Dad, you won't be able to do that.
what was the job?
It was working on a trading desk, starting in the pit and then
Right.
working up. So yeah, and the first day on the job, I walked in and my boss said, lovely to meet you, great you're here. I take my coffee black. And I said, that's
Oh,
amazing. So do I, and sat at my
yes.
desk, and
Yeah.
he got the coffee. And the
Yeah.
next day, I got the coffee.
Mm.
So it's just that it's being equal,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
just because
Exactly.
you're a man or whatever, or you're my boss. Actually, let's have this relationship where we can build respect for each other. But having that confidence to do that set a tone for our relationship. It was far more equal and let's listen to each other than just blah blah blah.
Yeah.
You do as I say. It wasn't like that.
Yeah. And how long were you in the pit for?
About 18 months.
And then what
So
happened?
yeah, I got made redundant from that job, and then I moved on to a different company. So, and then I started by that point. I think I'd met my husband by that point, and then we would talk about marriage, kids, and I didn't want that front office life anymore. So I went into project management and back office and had my kids, and then left the city altogether in 2008.
Right. Okay. So is that when you started in the realms of coaching?
That's when I started, in a way, yeah, because that's when I started working as a doula. So I sadly had a miscarriage and lost a daughter, and my boys were then 3 and 4, I think, or 2 and 3. And that's what spurred me to leave the city. I just felt done with it. And then doulaing was really quite cathartic for me at the time. I think I didn't realize it, but it was a lot of healing work going on there doing that. And then in the meantime, set up my own business, working with children, delivering sort of rugby themed sports sessions, because my youngest son at the time was very into rugby, but there was nowhere for him to go. So that sort of spurred from that. And then I sold that business 11 years later when I'd grown it. I had 28 staff, 17 venues, and I franchised it. And then just as lockdown hit, I decided I was done.
Right.
And sold it.
And the business is still going, is it?
Yep, still going, still going. They've taken some of it in a slightly different direction, but I just felt at the time that I wasn't in love with it, and it needed someone a bit more with that energy around that. And the coaching sort of came out of that, because during lockdown, I've got friends and acquaintances and sort of old colleagues that had businesses, had those side hustles. They were trying to make them sort of COVID proof.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the coaching and the mentoring sort of really started, and working with, it wasn't just women then, but men and women in business. So go, have you thought about this? Could you look at that? What about if you change that? And that sort of thing. And then that's where this all stemmed from, really.
Brilliant. So as you say, when you're a coach, so many coaches, years ago when coaching first kind of came out and about in the 80s, I refused to call myself a coach, because I was meeting people who, were claiming to be business coaches. They'd never run a business before. They were just almost like still out of school. And, to me, the coaching got a bad name, but there's some really, really rock solid, awesome coaches out there. And to me, the best coach is somebody, well, I don't call myself a coach, I call myself a mentor, because been there, done that, got the t-shirt, written the books, blah, blah, blah. And not everybody realises the difference between a coach and a mentor. So mentoring is kind of the experience. Coaching can be the experience, but very often a lot of coaches use a process. So do you use a process? I'm sure you use your experience as well, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's more my experience. I don't use anything like the grow method, really. It's more about letting the client direct where they need to go, but giving them little bits of, have you thought about that as an option along the way? So although we've got set programs, and I can take someone from that initial idea all the way through to starting up to branding, strategy, it really is what they need at the time. And it can change, as you know. You might start on the journey with one idea or one plan of, this is what I want to achieve, and actually it just diversifies so quickly. So I don't think there's a set method for me. It's very much what the client needs at the time.
Brilliant. And not only with your business experience, you've also got a lot of life experience. So talk us through some of the things that you've done on your website. I was reading earlier on about your rugby and strong woman and this, that and the other thing that you've been doing. So tell us about your side hustles.
Yeah, so in 2016, my company at the time, we sponsored rugby awards, and my local rugby club, which my son was then a part of in the Minis, won Rugby Club of the Year. And I just couldn't get my head around it. And I'd never really spoken to any sort of, the heads of the club much. But I went over that night and said, I don't understand how you've won. Like, it's great, it's a lovely club, but how? Because you've got no women and girls. And they were like, no, we've tried it 2-3 times, it just doesn't work. And I was literally, a couple of wines in, and I was just, hold my beer. Let's get this done then, shall we? And they were like, well, look, talk to us if you're still keen, da, da, da. So I went back a week later and said, I'm still totally up for this. Let's get the women and girls set up. So started with the women, and the chair at the time, Colin, brilliant guy, said to me, well, if you can get me 20 ladies that are interested, we'll support this. And I'm like, okay. I think the meeting was at 4, and by 7, I had 20 ladies that were like, yeah, we'll give it a go. And that grew from there. And that was November 2016 we launched. We've now got, with the ladies, about 40 regularly training.
Wow.
The aim is, we've moved up a league. The aim is that we're going to have a second team within the next 18 months to 2 years. And then the girls, in December 2018, I think we launched the girls. 8 of us female rugby players all decided that we want to coach the girls. And it was very much speaking to the club and saying, look, I think there needs to be a lot of women involved in the coaching of the girls. And so we launched the girls then, and now we've got about 60 girls playing as well. Wow. So yeah, fantastic. And it wasn't an easy setup, and there was, as I say, not from the chair, he was fantastic, but there was some resistance across the club, because they'd seen this done before and then it had failed. And but as there was a comment that was made when I'd done an interview for England Rugby, once I sort of get my teeth into something, I won't let it go. So very determined. And through that, I'm now women's and girls chair at the club. I used to play, and I had no intention of playing because I trained strongwoman before I set this up. But I thought, well, I'm asking these ladies every week to go out there and literally put their bodies on the line. So try it yourself. So I did, and I'd done a couple of seasons, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But I injured my shoulder, injured my hip, and then that was me out because I needed a hip replacement, not just from the rugby, long-term stress on that joint. But yeah, it's still going strong, and the aim is that everything becomes very self-sustainable. So whereas I manage the ladies, but I don't have as much day-to-day involvement because at some point I need to leave. So it's got to be sort of self-sustainable. So we're just working on the girls now, getting their management teams in place. So it's not just me doing the fixtures and things like that and getting them all set coaches. So yeah, hopefully by the time I sort of bow out gracefully in a year or two, that'll be very much established. And yeah.
Amazing. And where is this? Where is the club?
Bishop Stortford Rugby Club.
Oh, okay. I know Bishop Stortford well. I was brought up in Chinkford, not
Oh,
a
okay.
million miles away. Yeah. Although
Yeah.
I'm now in the Algarve in Portugal is where I live and where I'm speaking to you from. So
right.
yeah. So you live at Bishop Stortford, do you?
Yeah. Well, I live in Little Hallingbury, so just outside.
Lovely. Yeah. Very nice. Yeah. Gorgeous.
So, and then yeah, the strong woman that started before the rugby. I've always enjoyed since my late teens. Sort of fitness, never found something I absolutely loved. I'd always hit the gym. And then I was doing some training at a local gym with a coach and found out that things like flipping tires and moving heavy stuff was really cool. And then I changed gyms about 6 months later, speaking to a trainer there. They had a competition they were running. And 3 months ahead of the comp, I was like, yeah, let's do it. I'll do a competition. Let me see how this feels. And I placed third in that competition. Loved it, absolutely love strength training. I think it's so empowering. And then from there, I sort of done the rugby, still done a bit of strength training, but I ended up having to have shoulder surgery from the rugby. And then I ended up with a hip replacement in 2019. So I was told then no more extreme sports, which I listened to an extent for a little while. And I decided, obviously then lockdown hit, so you weren't out doing as much, but we went to Scotland in August of 2020. And so 363 days after my hip replacement, we climbed Ben Nevis.
Wow.
So, and that was amazing. And that was done on a bit of a whim as well, because we had a free day. And I thought, oh, I can do this. I can so which was amazing. And during that time, my eldest son had started getting into strongman and training. Then my younger son joined us as well. But I had no intention of competing. I was enjoying it, but I wasn't going heavy. And then a competition one, my eldest entered, and because of lockdown and restrictions, they're like, no one can view. So this competition was about an hour and a half away. He was too young to drive. So they said, the only way you're going to be able to watch him is if you compete, ha ha ha. So I was like,
watch me.
Yeah, 10 days out. I went, all right then, sign me up. And they were like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I'll compete. No problem. Let's do it. And I competed 10 days later with him, and I think I placed fourth. I think there was 8 of us, yeah. I come halfway. So for someone with a hip replacement, I'm like, yeah, that's cool. And then my youngest son started competing or started training and said, well, you've done one comp with Alf. You really should do one comp with me. And I'm like, oh my God, no, I don't, I can't. And they were both competing in a local competition. So I just went, all right, I'll do it. I'll sign up. And that was in April, and I placed fourth. And then I've sort of got the bug for it a bit, but I have said this next competition in 2 weeks is my last. I'm too old. The hip is just hanging on in. And I mean, I adore it. It's fantastic. And I wish there were more women and girls that got into this, because it is so empowering to be in that environment and hold your own. And, you know, when you're competing, although you're competing against other women, you are all very much rooting for each other. And I think that's what it's about.
How old are you, Carly?
43.
Gosh. So to be, doing this with family, business, everything. What does your husband think about all this?
Um, he loves it. He's quite happy to come along and watch us when we compete. He didn't like it so much when I was playing rugby. I think he'd stand on the sidelines like most of us do. When someone else is playing, it sounds worse. You know, when they're taking a hit or something like that, it sounds brutal. Whereas when you're in it, you're so full of adrenaline, you don't notice.
Yeah.
But he loves it. He's not into the gym at all. He'll walk the dogs, but this sort of thing is not his idea of fun.
Right.
He'll go golf.
Yeah. Gosh. Okay. Amazing. And it's great that you can do these things as a family together, and
Yeah.
using your past experience of project management in helping to get the clubs organised and the teams and all the rest of it. Brilliant. And that's the thing in life, isn't it? Nothing is wasted. Whatever we do, whenever we do it, there's always a way that we can use that knowledge and experience later on in life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is bringing that together and doing stuff. So many people look at, you know, maybe do I have the time to volunteer? The thing is, we've got the time for whatever we really want to do.
And
You find the time.
Yeah, and they say, don't they, if you want something doing, give it to a busy person.
And I have found that when I'm busier, I get far, far more done. If I've got a list, but I've got a lot of time to do it, then, you know, I volunteer for Hearts Minds and I'm a peer mentor there. And that just takes me sort of 2 hours a week. You can find the time, you know,
absolutely.
And it's fantastic to help others. And we set up a mental health support part of the rugby club, and I'm heavily involved. I sort of sit on the group, on the committee for that. And that, again, fantastic, especially over lockdown, being able to chat to some adults, but quite a few teenagers, and just mentor them along the way. And also we can refer them to counselling and pay for that through the club. So yeah, it's getting those conversations going and supporting others.
Brilliant. You truly are a shining example of what can be done, a woman in a man's world, but also then empowering women to have the confidence and to go forward. So how do people get hold of you, Carly?
On my website is silamatter.co.uk, which means strong woman. And I set up and chose the name without even relating it to just working with women. But that's how it's kind of built up. And since I officially launched in March of this year, I'm on Instagram, Sila Matter, and LinkedIn. And yeah, be great to connect with anyone, really, but really great to sort of support women along their journey.
Can you spell that? Because it doesn't kind of...
Yeah, sure. It's SILAMATA.
.com.
.co.uk, sorry.
.co.uk, right.
Yeah.
silamatter.co.uk.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Carly Poyser, thank you so much for your time today. True inspiration.
You're welcome. Thank you, Elaine. Thank you.